Our next speaker is J. Hannah Lee, Associate Professor of Psychology from the Department of Psychology, and will be speaking on the influence of culture on psychological understanding and education.
I'm going to start with my personal story. In 1999, I ventured out from my hometown in Korea for what was supposed to be a short stay in Japan, and I waved goodbye to my parents, and I assured them I'd be back in a couple of months. And at the time, none of us imagined I wouldn't come back to pick up where I left off in Korea. And since then on, I'm living in foreign countries for the past 25 years, and it seems like it's going to continue. So the first trip to Japan, I changed my life path. And you might wonder, what happened? Why you didn't go back to Korea? What kept you returning to Korea? So let me share one story. So this is my cultural experience in the first day in Japan. And stepping off from the plane in Japan at the airport, I was a young student with little knowledge of Japanese. And then my first task was meeting my acquaintance at the airport. And in Korea, as in Japan, bowing is the common way to greet, express the respect and say thanks. So of course I was motivated to show my respect, so I prepared. So I aimed to I was gonna bow to lower and longer than him. And then here he comes. And then in mid-bow, I snuck it to see how low he was going and to make sure I was not the first to rise. So one thing I didn't expect, he was doing exact same thing. So from there it got weird. It's to the bobbing head, going down and down, almost touching. The last one is a little bit exaggeration, but it was quite odd. But the funny part is we pretend nothing happened. But a few years later we laugh about it, but it took a few years. So this little bowing incident made me realize how the common shared practice can create such big different behavior gaps. It makes me realize how the culture influences people, the way they think, they behave. And that's why I didn't go back to Korea. So I chose to study psychology at the university in Tokyo. And since then I continued my journey. So I stayed 4 years, another 4 years in Japan, and Philippines, and Australia, where I had a job as a travel agency, selling the honeymoon travel packages. And obviously here, America, seems like the last destination I have settled on. So my research is really deeply rooted in my personal experience. So all of my research ideas coming straight from my daily observation and curiosity about the potential cultural impact and psychological factors. For example, social anxiety. So during my doctoral years, I noticed many of my Asian American friends, they seem more uncomfortable in social performing situations. For example, speaking out loud in class, raise hand, class presentations. So I studied social anxiety. Clearly they had higher social anxiety than the European American. And then I was wondering what the key factors, contributing factors make them the differences. So I studied and I found how they perceive the two cultures, so Asian, the culture of origin, and the mainstream American culture, how they perceive these two cultures as compatible or conflicting. matters the most than any other factors, like personal factors or English skills or how long they've been in America. In another area that piqued my curiosity was optimism. So as a professor, I noticed many of American students very optimistic about their grade. So it doesn't matter like where they are. Later, after I advised in session, I found out he had multiple D's and even an F, but quite optimistic about what's going to happen in next year and after graduation. So, which was quite different than how the students in Japan or Korea, including myself. So I was wondering, like, how does this really work? Does this, like, unchecked, almost unrealistic optimism help them succeed? Or could it backfire? Because there's a study, the unrealistic optimism can be harmful. So I was wondering what's going on. So I studied. So I tracked the students' grade the expectations already. Grade expectations. Then I found the 3 patterns. So first was realistic. Second was initially optimistic, but then it goes down, realistic. The last one is persistently optimistic, what they grade, despite underperforming. Then I compared their actual grade. Realistic group, the highest group, the grade, but the persistent, unrealistic, optimistic group was not necessarily the last one. So they are in the middle. So after the further analysis, I noticed for some students, the unrealistic optimism may not necessarily ignoring reality. Maybe it can act as more protective mechanism. So they can hold their sense of self as like big dreamers, and they make them keep going. So for advising these students, just as to tone down their optimism may not the best way, may not the best approach. So all my studies really based on what's called like cultural psychology. So cultural psychology, they happen because most psychology is based on Western, educated, industrialized, and rich democratic societies. And the fact that real society is only 16% of the entire world population. Then what about the 84? So it turns out many different theories and concepts we once thought universal were not. For example, here, this is a mirror liar illusion. Most of us gonna see the left side is longer. And we believe this was a universal brain oddity. However, research found it's not. Those people from the less urbanized, which less exposure to straight lines and the perfect angles, they don't have this illusion. The another one is, they try to ask you which object does not belong. Most of people are gonna choose the log. Because other three are tools, but this is not. However, people also found some other people without a formal education, they pick hammer based on the relationship among three. The saw and axe can used to be the logs. So this also shows the formal education makes us think how to think, how make sense the world around us. So these are all really quick ways to see the psychology, cultural psychology. So it's clear the cultural psychology contributes to showing critical aspect of human mind. But the coolest thing for cultural psychology to me is its power to cultivate the cultural humility and different appreciation for diverse cultures. And I hear many students taking this class, my class, as new experience, brand new, the new things that they never experienced. And this is not just anecdotal. My research, my pedagogical research, and others also found these kind of classes can have huge impact in students. So those who are interested, you can take my classes next semester. there is other way, better way, simpler way to do. When you next meet someone from different background, don't be afraid. Be curious. Be fascinated. Thank you.